2020 has been a weird year. I'm sure we can all agree on that. It's also pretty weird on the tech front. We now have an iPhone with a flagship chip that's priced almost the same as a OnePlus 8. So how do these two phones stack up? Which should you be looking to choose? Let's find out in this full comparison video. Hey guys, Ash here from C4E Tech, and if you do end up liking what you see in this video, please subscribe and turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get started. So here are the two phones side by side. First off, the size difference here is really noticeable. Compared to the OnePlus 8, the iPhone SE 2020, it's smaller in every possible way. Of course, the smaller footprint means that we have a very pocketable device that can easily be used in a single hand. Heck, at under 150 grams, this iPhone SE is one of the lightest phones that I've come across in the past couple of years, and the way it just fits into the palm, it just brings a smile onto my face. Apple didn't compromise with the build quality here either. We have a glass sandwich design held together by an aluminum frame. So how were they able to make the iPhone SE 2020 so thin and light? Well, that's because the battery inside is less than half of the capacity of the OnePlus 8. In contrast, the OnePlus 8 is just 0.7mm thicker and a little more than 30 grams heavier than the iPhone SE. The build here is no less premium. Corning's Gorilla Glass 5 to both the front and back, and the front has this nearly full screen display with just a thin bezel surrounding it. Compared to that, the iPhone SE, it looks dated. And well, to be fair, it is. The iPhone SE 2020 edition, it's using the body of the iPhone 8 that had been released way back in 2017. And even then, it wasn't a very fresh design. Now, some people may love the old design, especially those who are still holding on to their older, smaller iPhones. So even in 2020, the iPhone SE has its place. On top of that, we have IP67 water and dust resistance. The OnePlus 8, like the other OnePlus phones we've tested in the past, it comes with OnePlus's claim of day-to-day water resistance. Of course, OnePlus does have one more trick up its sleeve. The OnePlus 8 has an alert slider to the right, similar but more functional than the mute key to the left of the iPhone. At the end of the day, both phones are built well. OnePlus does have the newer design and looks much better from the front especially, while the iPhone SE is one of the most compact phones you can get today. Depending on what's more important to you, you get to decide this round. Now, we did touch upon the displays before, and well, it's easy to spot the differences here. The display on the OnePlus 8 blows the iPhone SE's display away. For starters, it's larger, 6.55 inches compared to 4.7. It's AMOLED compared to IPS LCD. The bezels also happen to be way slimmer. And of course, we have that tiny punch hole to the top left to boost the screen to body ratio. The OnePlus also holds the resolution edge. Full HD Plus versus what can loosely be called HD Plus. We also get support for HDR10 Plus, and then there's the refresh and touch sampling rates 90Hz and 180Hz respectively. That's a pretty big difference in how fast and fluid the overall device feels. So display, there is no competition here. It's the OnePlus 8 all the way. Moving on to performance next, we have the best hardware that both Android and iOS has to offer. The iPhone SE comes with the A13 Bionic, the same chip that we've seen on the current iPhone 11 series. But when it comes to day-to-day usage, it's actually the OnePlus 8 that feels smoother and snappier. OnePlus does have arguably the best Android skin, making this an Android versus iOS argument again. But the 90Hz refresh just makes everything flow very nicely. That really sets the OnePlus 8 apart. For gaming with graphically intense titles like PUBG, given the flagship internals, neither phone exhibited any issues. And again, with games that support it, the OnePlus 8's touch response and refresh advantages are hard to ignore. The smaller screen might be a negative for some too. Me personally, I was kinda okay with the bezels to the top and bottom because it did help with the grip. That said, I'm still gonna have to go with the OnePlus 8 here for gaming. Overall, from a spec standpoint, while the A13 might be the more powerful chip technically, the OnePlus 8 OnePlus seems to have put its resources to better use with the OnePlus 8. Next, moving straight onto battery life, again a pretty comprehensive victory to the OnePlus 8. With the 4300 mAh battery, the OnePlus 8 should last through a single day of moderate to heavy use with no problems. And when it does eventually run out of juice, we have the included Warp Charge 30T adapter that can get the OnePlus 8 from 0 to 50 in just 22 minutes. In contrast, the iPhone SE 2020 can be charged to 50% in half an hour. That too by the 18-watt charger that has to be bought separately. The included charger is just 5 watts. Come on Apple, even 6,000-7,000 rupee Android phones are shipping with 10-watt chargers these days. Anyway, here's the kicker. The 1821 mAh battery on the iPhone is probably its weakest link. It barely lasts me through a day of light usage. Most of my days I ended up having to charge it again by 5 or 6 p.m. These days I end up plonking it on a wireless charging pad on my desk almost all the time. The battery life is truly disappointing here, and not even the added benefit of wireless charging can make up for the deficit in battery life and charging speeds. Next up, software. Now, I don't really want to go into the whole iOS versus Android battle here. They each have their own pros and cons, and well, ultimately it boils down to personal preference. However, I must add this. OxygenOS is probably one of my favorite custom Android skins, and as I mentioned earlier, it's fast, the animations are snappy, and the features that OnePlus have added to it on top of stock Android, most of them are quite useful. Now, the strength of iOS is in the fact that it just works and will continue to work for a long time to come. The software, it's consistent, the updates, they are rapid fast, and the iPhone SE is expected to be supported for a long time. As much as I am an Android guy, these are things I just can't ignore. So this one's gonna come down to what you want again. Long support and quick updates or more customization. Based on that, it's iOS or Android for you. Before we jump into optics, let's get done with the sundries. Both phones have ditched the headphone jack. Interestingly enough, they also have similar stereo speaker configurations. Now both phones can get really loud, but I prefer the richer, more bassy sound profile of the OnePlus 8. As far as fingerprint scanners are concerned, we have Touch ID on the iPhone SE and it worked really well. However, the OnePlus 8 comes with one of the fastest under-display fingerprint scanners out there. It's lightning fast and accurate too. The same can also be said about OnePlus's Face Unlock, a feature that the iPhone SE lacks. However, the iPhone hits right back with that IP67 rating. OnePlus has no official certification. Okay, now we also debated if we should make connectivity into a separate category, but in the end, since Wi-Fi 6 and 5G are both new technologies that won't really see widespread utilization, in India at least for a few years, I thought it's better to bundle these two OnePlus 8 features in here. As for the iPhone, we have neither 5G nor Wi-Fi 6 support, but thankfully the iPhone SE 2020 is a dual SIM device. The caveat being that the second SIM is an eSIM. Now eSIM may be the technology of the future, but it is the future, not right now. Right now, it is a bit of a hassle to set up, so personally, I'd have preferred a secondary physical SIM slot like we get on the OnePlus 8. Finally, let's talk optics. We have a single 12 megapixel camera on the iPhone SE 2020, while the OnePlus 8 comes with a triple rear camera setup. The primary here is a 48 megapixel sensor. Interestingly, both phones sport f1.8 lenses that are optically stabilized. One thing that stands out here is how the OnePlus always ends up taking the brighter image of the two. Other than that, these two seem to be on par, with both cameras shooting excellent, well-detailed photos with well-preserved highlights and shadows. So they're pretty much on an equal footing under good lighting conditions. I'd actually give the iPhone SE a tiny edge here for shot accuracy. Point and shoot and the SE gets the shot right a tad bit more. Switching on over to low light, the OnePlus 8 has an obvious advantage in here since we do have a dedicated night mode, that is Nightscape. The pictures taken from it end up looking brighter with less blurry outlines, and they're just more detailed overall. In pictures like this one, we can see that the iPhone has very washed out colors. The entire picture looks dark, while on the OnePlus, the leaves still retain a nice lush green. Now the OnePlus 8 also comes with two other cameras, one of them being a 16 megapixel ultra-wide that can take photos like this, and the other being a dedicated macro sensor, 2 megapixels. So in terms of versatility, the OnePlus 8 is definitely ahead of the game. Coming down to rear portraits, the iPhone goes for a much more zoomed in shot compared to the OnePlus. The edge detection here is pretty good, and I like how the iPhone SE captures the exact skin tones and textures of the skin of the subject. Of course, since this is an iPhone, we also have portrait lighting for the rear as well as the front. Now, one limitation of portrait mode on the iPhone is that it only works with human faces, so no animals or other objects. With selfies, we have a 7 megapixel camera on the iPhone SE going up against a 16 megapixel sensor on the OnePlus 8. The skin tones and dynamic range are excellent on the iPhone. That means at a glance, the selfies taken by it do look better. Zooming in though, we can see that the OnePlus shoots sharper selfies. As far as video capture goes, both phones can do 4K 60 FPS. I prefer the processing on the iPhone here. Better detail levels with more real, true-to-life colors. That being said, both phones take some really good-looking video. The OnePlus 8 also comes with a super steady mode, which combines EIS along with OIS for better, less jerky footage. Unfortunately, it doesn't work at 4K 60. When it comes to slow motion videos, we can take 1080p to 40 FPS on both phones, but the OnePlus can additionally go down to 720p at 480 FPS. On the software side of things, the OnePlus 8 also lets us shoot in 4K Cine at 30 or 60 FPS, both of which are shot in wide 21:9 aspect ratios that's supposed to be more immersive. We also have a Pro mode for photos on the OnePlus 8, and that seems to be pretty well kitted out. Even lets us shoot RAW. So basically, if I were to sum up my camera observations with these two phones, here's what I'd say. If you're someone who just points and shoots, be it images or video, then go for the iPhone SE. It nails almost every shot every single time. The autofocus here, it just latches on and photos are snapped in the blink of an eye. However, if you're more of a tinkerer, you enjoy playing around with the different settings and modes, if you like to set up the perfect shot, then the OnePlus 8 comes with a lot more features, and as mentioned before, the triple camera setup here is a lot more versatile. So finally we come down to price, and in a weird way this is the most important bit of this puzzle, since if the iPhone SE didn't start at 42,500, just 500 rupees more than the base variant of the OnePlus 8, we probably wouldn't even be doing this comparison. Cause let's face the facts here, these are two very different phones for two very different audiences. Yet the way OnePlus has hiked up their prices and Apple has somewhat aggressively priced the iPhone SE 2020, we are now at a point where a potential OnePlus 8 buyer can get an iPhone, that Apple logo, for just 500 rupees more. Now, would I recommend that choice? Not really. In case it wasn't obvious from this video, the OnePlus 8, it is the better phone here overall. It brings a better screen, more cameras, better battery life, and faster charging to the table. On the other hand, the iPhone SE is not a bad phone. It does have the best performing mobile chip, wireless charging, the iOS experience, most importantly with longer support. Does all that make up for the sad battery life? I'd say no, especially since batteries degrade over time. If you are buying the SE 2020 a year from now, if not immediately, you're gonna end up being that guy who always has his phone plugged into a power bank. So unless you really want an iPhone or wanna hold on to one phone for a long time and don't mind the battery issues, the OnePlus 8, it's the sensible option, it's the way to go. Now that's my take on this. Now I'd like to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below what your choice will be if you had to choose between these two phones. And with that, we get to the end of this comparison video. Like it, hate it, thumbs up, thumbs down based on that. Also, subscribe if you haven't yet and turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you've already subscribed. So thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.